we were up on the second floor of a hangar, and we went down a fire pole, literally a fire pole, to get down to the jets when we scrambled. And I didn't grab the bar right one day, and I went down that thing just. I might as well have stepped off the second floor balcony. I hit the floor down below. I was on my ass. I got up. I got into the jet. Got the engine started. They canceled the scramble. So we shut down. We went back upstairs. And later that night, I couldn't get my boot off. So I just left it on with the laces loose. We were on alert for a week at a time up there. So a week later, we flew home. My leg was sore for about 2 months. I had trouble with my boots, but I never thought anything of it. I mean, I knew I hit the ground hard. It was like a year and a half later, I was at Armed Forces Staff College in Norfolk, Virginia, and I was running with my seminar baits. We'd go out every day. We'd run 5, 6 miles. And all of a sudden, I pull up lame. I'm like, oh, my leg just quit working. I hopped to a stop. And so I went to the Navy doctors at Portsmouth, and they took an x-ray of my right leg. And they said, do you know you broke your bone? You broke your tibia. It looks like it probably a while back, maybe a year or more. I said, oh my God, I know exactly when that happened.
You told me about the weapons. You know, when you were shooting these drones, the
Oh
WeJet.
yeah, that was WESIP, Weapons System Evaluation Program. That was a program where they bring fighter pilots into Eglin Air Force Base, Florida. I think they still do it out of Eglin. They might be doing it out of Tyndall these days. I'm not sure. But anyway, either Eglin or Tyndall. Eglin in my day. You would fly out over the Gulf of Mexico. They would launch drones, either little Ryan Firebees in my day or F-102 drones. Today they're using F-16 drones, but that they make right here at Davis Mountain at the Boneyard, by the way. Yeah. But anyway, you get to live fire. In my day, it was AIM-7 radar-guided missiles and AIM-9 heat seekers. There's a range safety guy with you in another jet. Clears the range, calls clear, lets you arm up. You get into solution on your target, whether it's a tail chase or a head-on. You take your shot. It helps. The idea is one for the pilots to get over the buck fever of firing your first missile.
How does it
Uh,
feel?
it feels pretty great. It's. Oh, I'll tell you, the heat seeker.
Do you actually feel the missile separating from the aircraft?
You do. No, I don't know the AMRAAM. I never flew with the AMRAAM. But the AIM-7 is a big telephone pole of a missile, big heavy thing. Yeah. And when it comes off the aircraft, the shoes on the fuselage actually push it away. And then when it gets a few inches away, that pulls the umbilical cord off, and now the missile arms up and fires, and off it goes. So when you fire one of those, it's like Fox One, pickle, and then you kind of feel this thump, thump, thump. Whoosh! This thing comes out from underneath this big white telephone pole, and it goes shooting off in the distance. It's pretty awesome to see. The AIM-9, on the other hand, little bitty guy out on your wing, it just goes whoop, and it's super fast. So both fun to fire. What's really fun to fire though is the gun. And for that, in my day, we mostly flew against dart towed targets, towed by other fighters. The other fighter would go into a 4G descending spiraling turn, and you would have to BFM the dart to get into a firing position, and then pull enough lead, and brrr, but of course you can feel all that. I imagine the A-10 guys really get a good feel. That's all lots of fun, and I've gotten to do lots of that over the course of my career, and those were probably the most fun missions of all. Love it,
Did you
love
actually
it.
see the impact of the AIM-9? Well, the AIM-7
Well,
was
here's the
more.
sad part. Here's the sad part. They take the warhead out of the missile because they want to reuse the drone if they possibly can. So the missile doesn't have a warhead, but there's telemetry attached to the missile, and they can read the telemetry on the ground, and it tells them when the fuse activates and when it would have blown up. So the missile, here's your F1. The one time I shot an F-102 was a tail chase. He was down below us. There were two of us back here, about a mile behind, flying line abreast. We both fired our AIM-7s at the exact same time. Both AIM-7s went down towards the drone. Here's the drone. Here's the drone. And they both went under the tail. And they said, based on telemetry, my wingman's missile did not detonate, but mine did. So I got a kill, even though nothing actually happened. The F 102 flew back and landed. Occasionally, they get a direct hit, which is rare. The missiles aren't really made to do a direct hit, but occasionally one will punch through a wing or stabilator or something and make a nice hole. But with the dart, you're actually firing at a piece of physical gear, a 16-foot long triangular dart, and you actually can see the bullets glinting off of it as it hits, and the skin shredding off and the thing disintegrating in the air. That is very satisfying indeed. No, the bullets are all the same. What happens is after everybody fires in the dart, after each person fires in the dart, this is supposing they don't shoot the dart off the cable. Uh, the instructor will fly up alongside the dart and actually literally count the holes. So there's 4 holes in the dart after I took a shot at it. The next guy takes a shot at it. Now there's 8 holes. Now you know that we both hit it.
Air refueling. Did you find it hard?
Hard the first couple of times. It's very intimidating. You get. Yeah, I did want to talk a little bit about flying in formation. Because there have been some air show accidents in the last couple of years where these civilian pilots are having mid-air collisions. You remember the one where the P-39 hit the B-17 down in Texas a year and a half ago, maybe something like that, 2 years ago. Anyway, I've always wondered, where do these civilian pilots get their formation training? Are they ex-military guys? Because if they're ex-military, they've got a lot of time flying formation. Formation is hard, and it really is a skill set, and you have to train, train, train. In pilot training, you start flying formation in the tweet, you continue to fly it in the T-38. Uh, when you get to your unit, you fly formation all the time because you're number 2 for the first year or so you're there. Uh, Everything you do is formation. But this is all on a same size aircraft. You get up under your first tanker, and it's as big as a football field that's looming over you. And kind of like with the Bear bomber, you can kind of hear it as you get close enough to it, and you can feel the downwash from the air being disturbed by it. And it's very intimidating. Getting up under this huge thing, you feel like, oh my God, am I going to hit it or is it going to hit me? Of course, after you get the feel of it the first few times, it never gets to be exactly second nature, but it gets easier. And you all get very good at it over time. But yeah, those first couple of times, in fact, the first time ever, I was at Luke Air Force Base. It was part of the curriculum of RTU was to hit a tanker before you could graduate. And you had to shoot the dart before you could graduate. You had to get a hit on a dart. You had to do all these things. At that time in 1978, there was still one Air National Guard unit left in the United States. I think it was Kentucky, that was still flying the old piston engine, propeller driven KC-97. KC-97. And my instructor pilot, as we're walking out to the jets, told me we were scheduled to hook up with the KC-97. And I was like, "Oh my god, how's that gonna work? I'm gonna be like this, that thing's gonna be like it's gonna be like this, and I'm gonna be like this, on the edge of the stall." And, oh my god, I was scared to death. We got out there, and here's this black dot off in the distance. We're gonna do a tanker rejoin. As we got closer, I could see the swept wings, and I got, "Whew." He lied to me. It was a KC-135. But then hadn't thought about it before. When the KC-135 is on his orbit, it's like, a racetrack, 10-mile legs, I think, with a turn at each end. And I'm saddling up behind this guy, and all of a sudden he goes into 30 degrees of bank, and I'm like, this wouldn't be anything if I was with another F-15. I'd be right there, man. But here's this huge thing. What am I supposed to do now? It was a real eye opener. And anyway, we got back, and my instructor pilot said, "This is for the first time." He said, "So let me look at your glove." We wear these flight gloves. They're green Nomex on the back, and they have a light gray kid leather on the palm side. Lovely, lovely gloves. Mine's completely black. And my instructor pilot said, "Yep." He said, "You squeezed the juice out of the stick, didn't you?" That's what everyone does the first time. You're just squeezing so hard, and they tell you, once you get a little bit of experience, wiggle your toes, maybe wiggle your fingers a little bit. It's just fine formation. That's all it is, And after a while, it gets easier. But
And you
like
got
I
these
said,
lead-in lights, right? On the right side, you got like,
the lights are on the belly, and I never really use the lights. They're there. I've seen them. Uh, they're kind of distracting to me. I just kind of get the big picture. I know where the number three engine should be in relation to the fuselage, and where I should be in relation to the belly, and I just fly to that position and stop, and then the tanker hooks me, and I'm good to go. A little bit different for the KC-10. The KC-10 has a very powerful boom, and when he sticks you, he can actually move you around with that boom. If he doesn't like if he doesn't like where you're at, he'll move you. So that's pretty impressive, yeah. And they say the KC-46 is the same way. And in fact, I flew in the back seat of an F-104, a CF-104 once with a Canadian. Yeah, they'd come over from Bad Solingen or whatever. Yeah, Bad Solingen. And they were at our air base for about a month while their runway was being resurfaced. And of course, they brought a couple of family model 104s with them, and we all hitched rides in the 104 just to say we'd done it. I'd always wanted to fly in a Zipper. God, what a neat airplane. And so I went flying with this Canadian dude. And of course, right after takeoff, he gave me the controls. And I'm like, this thing is like just a rock. It's like riding on a rail. Because those tiny little wings doesn't react to the least turbulence or anything. With the F-15, you're bouncing around a lot with those big fat wings. But this 104 is just like an arrow shooting through the sky and smooth. And you could turn to 302 and a half degrees. You got it turned up, you take your hand off the stick, and it's just going to sit there and maintain a heading of 302 and a half degrees all day long and not react to any turbulence. And I said to the pilot, I said, God, this thing must be a breeze to take a check ride in. And he said, you're damn right it is. And that's why they won't let us do it. We have to take our check rides in the T-Bird. And I don't know about you, but I always had trouble with math. I was never cut out to be a fighter pilot. You know how they say you gotta know your math, you gotta know your engineering principles. I never knew any of that crap, and I because it turns out it's all rules of thumb, right? You get in with the experienced guys, and they say, "Oh, here's the rule of thumb for that. Here's the rule of thumb for this." And hey, Mach plus two, whatever you can figure anything out. It's pretty easy, actually. So that's another thing I would say to future pilots. Don't get wrapped around the axle about that needing to have a math or science background. It's helpful, but you can get along without it. I did.
you mentioned Mach 2. Did you ever do Mach 2?
I've done the fastest I've ever been in a jet is Mach 2.21,
No kidding. How high?
which is yep.
40,000?
It was up in the 40s. It was up in the 40s. It was an FCF flight at Soesterberg over the North Sea. In addition to all the other things I did, I was a unit FCF pilot at both Soesterberg and Elmendorf. That's where you test fly airplanes that come out of major maintenance. If they've had a double engine change or any work done on flight controls, they have to be test flown first to make sure they're safe. And you have an FCF profile that you have to follow exactly. That basically tests every system on the airplane when you're actually up in the air. And one of the procedures in the F-15, of course, is a Mach-run. You're usually fuel limited because when you fly an FCF, it's usually in a clean jet. It's one of the rare occasions where you're going to get to fly one without missiles on it, without external tanks, even without pylons. And when the jet is naked like that, it'll go fast. As we know, the F-15 is, I think, still our fastest fighter ever, 2.5 Mach 2.5 capable. But in fact, they'll get up into the 2.2s, maybe 2.3. I've never heard of anybody touching 2.5, but I hit 2.21 once on an FCF flight over the North Sea, and I was like, wow, this is really something. As fast as I've ever been.
And that's probably not for long.
Yeah, you got about you can see the fuel gauge move. It's like you got both eyes on the fuel. Well, one eye on the Mach meter, one eye on the fuel gauge. Yeah.
Well, that's just about wraps it all up, Paul, I think, right?
A lot of info there. Yeah, I could probably think of a million more stories, but thank you. Lovely talking to you.
Okay.
On
Take
on.
it
Bye
easy,
bye.
Paul. All right. Bye bye.